hold on. Okay. I think that's good, or do I look a little like washed out? Like maybe like that. I'll probably have to turn it up like throughout the video because the sun is gonna go down. But anyways, hello everybody. I'm going to be doing a video that I've literally been wanting to do for the past 2 months. I just haven't had time to sit down and actually film it. Today I'm going to be doing a video on things I wish I knew when I started collecting. So this is going to be basically a beginner's guide. Obviously from my experience, this is just everything from my take. It might not be 100% right, like by the book, not that there is a collecting book or whatever. Not that there is a collecting rule book or whatever, but this is just like my personal opinion. So this is basically going to be a beginner's guide. I always get questions on like, what stores do I buy from? Where can I start trading my stuff? Like, how do I start trading my stuff and all of that stuff? So this is going to be a video to answer those questions. I kind of asked you guys on Twitter and on my story on Instagram 2 months ago when I originally was going to do this video, and let me turn this off, but I was basically asking you guys what you guys wanted me to talk about or things that you wanted me to address in the video. And also, if y'all hear like a bunch of noise, y'all probably won't hear it, but like it's Thanksgiving, you know, my family doesn't do shit, but bitches are in the kitchen and my room is right outside the kitchen. So if y'all hear anything, I'm so sorry, but I don't know if I mentioned this. This is my second time filming this video actually, and yeah, I've done beginner guides before. This is, I guess, going to be an updated one. It's only been like maybe about 2 years of me collecting, I guess. A little under 2 years. But I've posted them before. If you want to check them out, go ahead. But honestly, since I'm posting this, I feel like there's no point in checking them out because this is going to be all of the updated information that you ever need, sure. Obviously, in order to buy photo cards, you need to know what photo cards exist. So oftentimes when I want to know what cards exist, I will actually find photo card wish lists or templates. You can usually find them on like Twitter if you search up like so-and-so photo card template, or I'm pretty sure if you ask somebody they would have one for you. Just because I feel like they're harder to find. Maybe it's because I stay in girl groups and there's not as many out there. But if you guys have suggestions for pages, because I know there's pages who do templates for like every single group, so feel free to leave those down below to help people out. But for me, I personally don't remember any, like none of them stick out of the top of my head because I don't really follow any, because I usually make my own red velvet ones. So if you're looking for a red velvet template, I have those. But yeah, usually these lists will have all of the goods that you're looking for. They usually break them down by a different number of criteria, so it'll be like, oh, you can have it by member, by era, by group. You can have like a whole group one or whatever. I'm pretty sure there are some YouTubers on here probably if you want to go look through their pages, because people usually tag their templates or whatever. You can probably find somebody who stays in the same group as you and look at their page and see if there's any cards that you need. I know Carolyn Wanhade makes a lot of Monster X ones, but I say monster, I'm gonna get like dragged by the Mon Bebes. This is Future Randy because I forgot something else that I wanted to say, is that like also there are Twitter pages that will actually retweet people who tag them. So I know there's a Red Velvet specific one, like Red Velvet photo cards on Twitter, and basically what they will do is that anybody who tags them with like Red Velvet cards, they will retweet. That is a place that you can look at to buy as well, or sell, you know, like if you have your own cards that you want to sell, then go ahead and tweet that page and they'll go ahead and retweet it and give it more exposure. Now obviously you can just look on eBay and all of that stuff, but I feel like on eBay it's a little bit harder to tell unless you're like super familiar with the group. If you're just getting started, it's harder to tell which cards belong to which era and all of that stuff, so I highly recommend that you use templates. And then so obviously once you know what kind of PCs you want, the next thing is, where do I find PCs? You can find PCs from a number of places. So a place that I usually look in is hashtag Red Velvet Photocard. I've talked about this before in my other videos, but basically you can look up the group that you want and then photocard on Instagram, and oftentimes you will find trade sale posts for the group that you're looking for. Sometimes there are other groups in the tags that aren't supposed to be there, like sometimes there will be, let's say, Itsy in the red velvet photo card tag. Don't do that, okay? Because that's so annoying, and I've seen people get jogged for it before. Do I think it's something that people should jog people over? No. Do I think you should do it though? No. So, just as a heads up, people don't like it when you do that. It's a lot of people's pet peeve. So in there, you can usually just message people if they have a card that you want for sale, you know. You can also join Facebook groups. There's K-pop photo card trading, whatever, Facebook groups. I'm pretty sure you can find one. I'm in a few. I'm in like a red velvet group specifically. I'm also in a worldwide one. I'm in a US trading, selling, buying group or whatever. So literally just type in like K-pop photo card group or whatever on Facebook. And then obviously there's just like the regular platforms that people usually use, and that is eBay, Mercari, and Depop. I think that's all the ones that there is or whatever, but those platforms usually take fees from sellers, so they'll usually raise the price a little bit to accommodate that. So, and honestly, like, I just feel like people on there in general just like to overprice, you know? Like, my pricing tip for photo cards would be $10 or less for album cards. There's no reason why I should be pricing album cards at like $15, $20. It's literally insane. It's an album card. The album is still in print, especially if the album is still in print. If the album came out yesterday, I know like a lot of BTS fans have that issue where like they'll complain about how high BTS photo card prices are, and the album will have come out yesterday, and I feel so bad for ARMYs because I'm like, damn, you know, like at that point you might as well go get an album at Target, you know? So that's kind of like a little pricing segment, I guess, is try not to buy photo cards or try not to price photo cards as well, like album ones at least. I guess I can't really speak for tour goods because I don't know much about tour goods from like any group besides Red Velvet. But I would say for album photo cards, just please, whenever you can, try not to buy photo cards that are above $10 because then we are enabling sellers and we don't want to enable people who overprice their cards. So, okay, and the next thing I got a lot was addressing abbreviations in the community. So there's a lot of them. If I miss any of them, feel free to leave a gentle note in the comments, but one of the abbreviations that you will see more often than not is WTB, WTS, and WTT, which all stand for want to. So want to sell, want to buy, and want to trade. So I feel like those are pretty self-explanatory. When somebody wants to sell something, they'll put WTS. When somebody wants to trade something, they'll put WTT. When somebody wants to buy something, they'll put WTB. So WTB is usually like if somebody is looking for a card, they will actually put that. And what other abbreviations? I know there's NFS. Like whenever people put their cards up for trade, they usually put not for sale so that people know that, hey, you know, I'm not trying to sell these cards, I am only trying to trade them. Or vice versa, like if people put NFT, then it means not for trade. So if somebody's trying to sell a card, then they are not trying to trade it. But sometimes people are willing to do either one. LFB, this one is one that I see less often, but it's looking for a buyer, which means that they're trying to sell it. There is also worldwide WW, and this usually means that if they put like no worldwide or whatever, or no WW, then that usually means that they're not willing to sell outside of their country. So whenever you are trying to buy or trade from somebody, I highly recommend that you look at their bio to see where they're from. And actually, when you are trying to buy stuff that isn't non-album, I guess, like more rare items like tour goods and stuff like that, I highly recommend that you use proxy services. So somewhere people buy from all the time is Mercari Japan. And I remember when I first discovered Mercari Japan, I literally went ham on those places. And so like a few proxies that you can use are Japonica, Neokyo, and Bai, and they all have like different fees, I guess. They all have like pros and cons. I won't really get into because this isn't like a proxy video, but I will say that Neokyo does have the cheapest fee, but I feel like they are the least on top of it in terms of buying stuff, because they do take a while to buy stuff, and if something that you're wanting to buy is really high in demand, then you could submit your buy request for it, pay for the request, and then like they won't even buy it because I feel like they take forever to buy them. I think like they take up to maybe a day or two. Granted, I haven't used them in a while, and like that's the reason why I stopped using them, was because they take forever. But Bai, I feel like, is the most friendly to new users. Like, it's not as confusing because Bai just has like an interface built into their site where you can shop on Mercari Japan, whereas like on the two other sites you actually have to go and like look at Mercari Japan and then fill out a form and then submit it and like all that stuff. But Bai is like super quick, super instant. And actually this sounds sponsored, but it's not. This is just like, you know, if I was a beginner, I would probably be using Bai, but I actually have a coupon code for first-time users. I'm saying this and I don't get any commission like off of people who use my code or anything. This is just me trying to help you out. My code is for $20 off, about like 2,000 yen or whatever, so go ahead and use that. I will leave it down below. So $20 is a lot of freaking money. Like, hello, a free $20 off coupon is a lot, like, so you guys better take advantage of that. Okay, so this is a side note from Editing Randy, but whenever you're buying from these sites, try to bundle the listings that you're buying. So let's say, for example, if I'm trying to buy like 2 Wendy cards, instead of buying the cards separately, like in 2 different listings, try to find a listing that has one of them. Now you'll probably have to do some digging, but I feel like this is so bright. Is that better? It'll be worth it because the fees really add up and you don't even realize it. I remember the first time that I got my Japonica like invoice, I guess, the fee was a lot higher than I anticipated. Like, it didn't feel like I had bought that many listings, so it'll save you so much money because like then if, for example, Japonica has like $5 fees, right? So if I bought 2 listings, that would be $10 fees, but if I found one listing with both cards, then that would only be one $5 fee, so. And there's also places like Korean Twitter, which I know I talk about like it's a whole other world, but literally it's just like me looking up like my group in Hangul words to find whatever I want. I won't get too much into that, but I will say that I used to promote this site called Bunchong, but Bunchong is a lot harder to access now, and I used to be like, message me and I'll give you the login, which doesn't work anymore because the proxy that everybody used basically stopped working, stopped being available, stopped being open. I don't know what the word term I'm looking for is, but basically they don't offer like proxy services anymore. So the only way you can buy off of Bunchong is if you have an account, which you are required to have a Korean phone number, and then you also have to have a proxy, or you can buy from yourself on there if you know how to do Korean bank transfers, which I won't go into. Don't ask me how to do them because it's pretty, I wouldn't say it's complicated, but it definitely sounds a lot more complicated, and it's just a lot of steps, and it's just like a lot of steps to explain, so I won't like talk about that in this video. Maybe I'll make another video on it, I don't know. But all I will say is that right now there's no good Korean address services anyway, so even if you buy something from Korea, you're not gonna have anywhere to send it, or nowhere that I would recommend you send it, because all of these Korean address services are shit right now. And so that's like the thing with buying off of Korean Twitter and stuff like that, as well as that usually these people do not ship internationally, they only ship within Korea. So okay, so next I have like tips on messaging people. If you're gonna message somebody and ask them like, oh, I have a card you want, or like, hey, do you want to trade? I get that so often. The person like won't say what card it is, and it's like, it's not like the world's biggest deal, but it's also just like, I mean, if you're gonna message me to trade, it would be nice if you told me what card you wanted and what card you wanted to trade for, so just like disclose that up front. Also just like treat people with kindness, you know. I've seen people be like really rude to people, totally, what's the word I'm looking for? Unprovoked. And also, if you ever decide that you don't want something, or you don't want to trade with somebody, or that you can't, just make sure you communicate with people, you know. Like, if you tell me that you don't want to buy something, that is totally fine. I won't like hate you for it. Well, I'll be a little bit annoyed maybe, but like I would appreciate the fact that you told me initially, because I've had so many people who will tell me that they want to buy something, will give me a date when they can buy, and then the day will come and it will be crickets. And in the past, like in group orders, I've given people like I remember this one person joined my finale group order and I gave them 2 extensions, and then after 2 extensions they were like, actually, I can't pay for this because I have bills to pay and stuff like that. And I'm like, you know, that's totally fine. I just wish you would have told me that from the get-go, and I would have much rather somebody just been upfront with me so I could have moved on looking for a new buyer. I usually get too scared to back out of group orders and stuff, so I get the anxiety and stuff, but I usually end up just buying the item. Also, sellers, be nice to people, you know, allow people to ask questions and stuff. I guess I'll kind of get into buying now. Whenever you are buying from somebody, make sure that you ask them for proof of having the item. Unless they say it's not on hand, make sure that you ask them for proof. So what I'll usually do is that I'll ask the person for a picture of the card with a sticky note of their username. If you want to take it an extra step, which now that I think about, you should probably do, especially if you're like terrified of being scammed, which I think everybody is, but you should also ask for, but if you want to go that extra mile, I would say ask for a picture of their username and your username, and sometimes people will ask for the timestamp, so people will ask for like them to write the date and the time on the piece of paper so that they know that they actually have the item and that they're not trying to scam. Now, is this totally 100% scam proof? No, somebody could do all of that stuff and still not send you the card, so this is just me giving you tips on how to like prevent being scammed, but I'm not gonna tell you that this is like how to 1000% avoid being scammed, because I have no control over that. I'm like, you can only do so many things on your end to prevent you from being scammed. Also, another thing is, if you're buying from somebody and you've never dealt with this person before, or you're feeling a little sus about the person, make sure you buy from them with goods and services on PayPal, okay? Don't use Venmo, don't use Cash App, don't use Apple Pay, don't use Facebook Pay or whatever, because those don't have buyer protection. Make sure you pay on PayPal and specifically choose goods and services, because then that is the only way that you'll be able to get your money back. So let's say I buy a photocard from somebody and 2 months from now they still haven't sent it out, and I've tried communicating with the seller and they blocked me, ghosted me, whatever. I can go ahead and go into my PayPal and open a case against them and tell PayPal that I never got my item, and then PayPal will go ahead and like contact the seller, and then we'll refund you depending on like the seller has no evidence of sending the card to you. So make sure you pay goods and services. Now, I will say sellers usually require you to cover the fees of goods and services, but if it's like a $5 item, it usually isn't that much. Like, I feel like at most it's usually $1 or so. International transactions do have higher fees. I will go ahead and leave a fee calculator down below, and basically, while the fees might add up, like the dollar that you pay every time you do goods and services might add up, it will be worth it in the long run, because I would rather pay that extra $1 to prevent myself from being scammed than like lose out on an entire $7 if I actually got scammed and I paid friends and family instead. Also, if you are going to open a case against somebody on PayPal, make sure you don't close it. I learned this the hard way, and it was a lot of money. It was for a fan sign slot, and basically somebody hadn't sent out my albums that I was supposed to get, and then I opened up a case against them, and then they messaged me like, oh my god, like, I'll send it soon, I promise, like, there's just natural disasters in my city right now, and like tsunamis and shit, and like I can't send out. And so what am I gonna say to them? Like, no bitch, you're lying, like, you know, like, I can't say that. And so basically they manipulated me into closing the case. Still have not received my items, and once you close the case you can't reopen it. So make sure you don't close the case unless the item is, or don't close the case unless it is resolved and like the person has actually sent you your goods. Now, I will say, for me personally, I only set friends and family now because I am an established seller, and I have like a bunch of proof on my Instagram. I have like a whole proof highlight. There's like 100 posts on there, and I just like constantly am adding new ones and then like deleting old ones, because I personally like don't want to clutter my page with a bunch of proof highlights. But I've seen people who have like 5 or 6 proof highlights. I would just say, if you're sending friends and family in like a group order, just do your research on the group order manager. If you've never dealt with the person, maybe look at the reviews. I know for me personally, whenever I post my proofs, I always use the person's username in them. or I always leave the person's username in them. And let's say if somebody like wanted to contact that person and be like, hey, like, what was your experience joining Chaebom's group, or do you know, then that person can tell them. Now, I've never had anybody like actually do this. I don't know if anyone actually does that. And so then if you pay on like Venmo and all those other apps that I listed, you won't be able to get your money back because I don't think they had like a dispute section or whatever. So pay PayPal goods and services when you're dealing with a new seller, everybody. Now, what are red flags when it comes to scammers? This one is hard. I haven't been scammed too many times. I would say that like somebody who doesn't have proof and is like really being pushy about you sending friends and family can be a little sus. Now, is it guaranteed that they're a scammer? No, but for me personally, like if I'm ever slightly uncomfortable in a transaction, don't be afraid to back out. Just let the person know like, hey, I'm not comfortable dealing with you, because at the end of the day, like that is your money. That is like, if you're even trading, you know, that still is money that you're sending out, and you don't want to risk being scammed out of that. Oh, another red flag is if somebody can't send you pictures of the item. Or I would say like if something is too good to be true as well. Like this kind of ties into my mini story time, but basically when I was starting to collect OT5 red velvet, I was wanting to buy a bunch of cards. So I posted all my wish list to the Red Velvet Facebook group and was like, hey, you know, does anybody have these cards? I'm willing to buy them. And so somebody messaged me and was like, hey, like I actually have all of these cards, like every single card that you want on your wish list. And I was like, okay, like I'm not gonna question it, not yet at least, but like that's a little weird that you would have every single card, you know, unless somebody was like selling their whole collection, which does happen, I guess. But for like in this case scenario, it was like weird, because then I was like, I think they were offering me $5 per card, which is like not too bad, but a little too good to be true, because that was including Kino cards as well, which you guys know are more expensive than album cards. And so I was like, okay, like, oh, can I get a picture of the cards? And they're like, oh no, because I don't have them on hand, like they're coming from my supplier or whatever. And I was like, okay. And so basically I ended up doing my research on this person, and I like typed their name on Twitter, like their Facebook name into Twitter, and found out that they had scammed a bunch of people. And I'm so glad that I was getting these sus vibes. I would say those are 2 red flags. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. Okay, so how to do trades and proofs. I touched on this a little bit before. When you're adding proofs to your Instagram, I highly recommend that you include the people's username, unless they specifically request that they like don't be put on your story or whatever. Maybe you can just post it with like blocking out their username. But when you're doing trades, so what I will usually do is, like I said, I will ask the person for a picture of the card. I will also send them a picture of my card, and then we will usually agree on a day to send out. So let's say I agree on Tuesday to send out, okay? We're cool for Tuesday, and usually in between then we will send each other packing proof. So what we'll usually do is that we'll actually package up the card in a top loader and like tape it to the card and all that stuff, and then write the address on the envelope and put a stamp on it so that they know that you use the postage and stuff. I feel like the stamp part is, I don't feel like the most important part, but that's what I usually look for when I'm looking at proofs. And then so we'll like send each other pictures of like the envelope and the card all packed up. After that, when we are ready to drop off, we will actually like send each other videos of us dropping off at the post office. Now, I usually don't send video proof or like really accept video proof. It's just like somebody putting it in their mailbox, because you know, you can open and close the mailbox and like take stuff out of your mailbox, but what people usually will do is that they'll go to the post office, and you know how like once you put the envelope into the box or whatever, you can't get it back out. So that's what people usually do, is that they'll like take a video of them showing the card or whatever, the envelope, to make sure that like, you know, it's yours, and then they'll put it in the envelope, and then they're good to go, you know. And so that's how usually trades go. I will say that like agreeing on a day to send out is important, because you know when to expect the card, and like if they receive your card, then you know kind of the time frame of when you should be receiving your card as well. And I will say that sometimes if you're a new person to the community, let's say you have no proofs whatsoever, some people like will still trade with you. Some people will just require you to send first. And I mean, I feel like that's pretty reasonable, as long as the person isn't making you feel like shit about it. And I talk about my experience a lot in the Funko Pop community, but I remember one time, like, I'm obviously like not a scammer or whatever. I mean, but the person didn't know that. But I didn't have any proof previously because I hadn't really traded with anybody and I didn't really keep tabs on stuff like that. And so this person just like made me feel like shit for not having any proof and like made me feel like the inferior collector or whatever. And just make sure that you're trading with somebody that you know is credible so that you know, like for your own good, that they're not gonna scam you after they receive your card first. My next thing that I got asked to talk about was packaging, and I actually have a whole video on packaging if you guys want to watch that. I won't go into details because it's not like a process, but it kind of is. So I will go ahead and card that. I think it's gonna be up here to TLDR. I don't even know if that's the abbreviation or whatever. Basically, just put the card in a sleeve, in a top loader, blah, 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 tape it to the card, send it out. So I suggest ways on how you can package stuff even if you don't have a top loader in that video. So make sure you guys go check that out. I also tell you guys how to ship bigger things like postcards and stuff, and even albums. Like all of that stuff pretty much applies to albums. And so the next thing is, how do you deal with people who receive their items damaged or claim that their item was lost and all of that stuff? This one is pretty hard. I feel like I haven't had too many people lose trades in the past. I feel like I've only ever had one person, and even then, like, I didn't really know what to do for when people receive stuff damaged. Just sellers, make sure you properly package stuff, you know? Like, usually when stuff arrives damaged to my buyers, it's usually because the mail person will like shove like a magazine or whatever like into a mailbox, like a tiny mailbox, and like that, like, oh my god, it's like, why would you do that? You know, if it doesn't fucking fit, why would you fucking squeeze that shit in there? I would say what I usually do when people receive their stuff damaged is that, like, since I kind of have the resources and stuff, I will go ahead and refund their shipping. I know not everybody can do that, but that's personally what I do. But just, you know, sellers, make sure you're properly packaging stuff so that you don't have buyers receiving your stuff damaged. Or like, I've seen this myself where I bought something off of my cart, and I think it's in one of my unboxings or whatever, but this person literally just threw my album into a bubble mailer and like called it a day, which I get it's called a bubble mailer, but like the bubble mailer does nothing to protect anything. Like, that's literally just a line of popped bubble wrap. Like, it's not going to provide any protection. It was like frustrating because all of the corners came dinged. So just communicate with the buyer. Communication is really key in anything to coming to a resolution with anything. If the buyer wants something from you, maybe you can like meet them halfway. Maybe you agree with how they want you to compensate them. I kind of forgot what I originally said on this, but I would just say make sure that you properly package stuff so it doesn't arrive damaged. Don't just throw stuff in like a card in an envelope and call it a day, because that's, you know, you're gonna get pressed for that shit. You know, usually if the person packages it properly, USPS can still fuck it up, and it's hard because once it's something that's out of my hand, then it's also out of my control, especially if I packaged it well. Like one time I sent a card to somebody in a top loader, and for some reason, somehow, the card arrived like bent, and I was like, well, I sent this in a top loader, like how the hell did that happen? But I wasn't gonna like fight the post office or fight the person either, so I was just like, hey, so here you go, here's like the refunded shipping costs. I'm pretty sure I refunded them for like probably half the amount of the card too. So what to do when somebody scams. I've talked about this earlier, but if it's a purchase and you pay through goods and services, like I said, like I will always preach, pay goods and services, just open up a case on PayPal. If somebody trades you out of your scam, I've never gotten scammed with a trade, so I can't give you too much insight on that. And honestly, getting scammed with a trade is pretty sucky. Is that the word I'm looking for? I don't know, that's not a real word. But basically, it pretty much sucks because I feel like that is a situation that's more out of your control, because, you know, there's no trading police that is gonna come help you. So I don't know if you guys have any advice on what to do when you did, or what you've seen other people do previously to get their trades that they've been scammed out of. Do let me know. And this is something that I did when I first started collecting, so I guess I knew this, but this is my tip to people, because I see people all the time that are like, I'm gonna collect this person, but I also wanna collect this person, and like, I'm not sure how to do it. And I would say just set rules for yourself. Just make sure that you follow a set guidelines so that you don't buy things that you don't want and like waste your money on and that you're gonna potentially regret in the future. Because my rule when I started collecting was joy. That was it. Joy Anything, I'm only buying Red Velvet albums because I was scared that I was gonna spiral into like wanting to buy albums from every single group possible. And so that was pretty much my year, that was pretty much my rule first year of collecting. And I feel like I'm pretty satisfied. And then obviously, you know, like as you get more comfortable, as you accomplish collections, then you can change your rules and all of that stuff. But I will say, just do what you want with your collection. I've talked about this before, I've preached about this before, but if you want to collect fan-made photo cards, do it. If you want to collect 2 people out of a 13 people group, do it. You don't have to collect a full group. And if people want to give you shit for like not doing something a certain way with your collection, just remember that it's your collection. And if your collection makes you happy, you know, if printing out pieces of paper of your idols and putting them in a binder makes you happy, then do it, you know, because I've had somebody message me, I've had people all the time message me like, hey, you know, I had my friend ridicule me for like having my collection set up a certain way or only collecting a certain number or like not collecting the full group. And it's like, unless this person is personally going to donate to your collection, then I don't give a fuck. You know, don't take shit from them. Unless they're gonna give you the money to buy the cards that they want you to collect, then you don't owe them anything, you know? I've also had somebody message me like, oh, but I just collect like my pulls from my albums and put them in my binder. Like, is that considered a collection? I mean, sure, you know, like, if that's what you do, if you just keep your album pulls, I know people who do that. I used to do that with my Red Velvet cards. Like, when I would buy the albums, I would just keep my album pulls or whatever and not even trade them. Okay, I think that's it for this video. If there's like anything that I want to add in here, I'll go ahead and add it in later in the editing process because it's like getting dark and I feel like this video is already getting long. So if you guys have any questions about things that I didn't address, do leave them down below and I'll try to answer them. And if not, I'm pretty sure somebody will be nice enough to go ahead and answer it for you because, you know, love J-Bomb Illies, they be coming through like that. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope that this was helpful. If you're new to the community, hello, welcome. I hope you enjoy your time here. Hopefully this helps you out. Wishing you well with your collection, and if you've been collecting, wishing you well with your collection still, you know? So that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is super rushed, but peace out. I was like mid-burp when I was doing that.